a fantastic weekend we have had so far. You guys enjoying yourselves?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what moment thus far has stood out for you guys since you at first kind of came onto the Universal Orlando lot and saw what was happening at this year's celebration of Harry Potter?
We just rode the Dragon Challenge, and Tom and I were in the front row going, "Ah!" I'm so thrilled that they don't take photographs on that ride.
As far as we know.
I mean, for me, it's just how big this event is and how many people come out here to see us and see everything that's going on. Because, of course, you've got the expo and the stage events and, of course, the rides and things to go on as well. But, I mean, it's an amazing event, this celebration.
So that's your single moment, is it?
Single moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what do you like about this whole thing? I mean, I think it's a great event.
I'm always somewhere in between the two. I'm always bowled over by, like Warwick said, the size of the event and how I've had the privilege of being here before. And so to see it grow in the way that it has, and to see the event get bigger and the amount of people here get larger and the enthusiasm go off the scale. And that when I arrived here on the first day and saw that still being as rich as it was the first time I came is my favourite moment.
Very cool. Tom?
It's a wonderful, beautiful balance of community. Like everyone who's obsessed with Potter as much as you lovely witches and wizards. Yeah, I love you too. Yeah, it's amazing. It really brings a whole community of wonderful people together. And the creativity. Some of the costumes I've seen this weekend have surpassed any efforts of previous years that I've come across. So I take my hat off to you, not literally, but
Literally do it.
all right, fine. It was a bad hair day. Cheers, man. So yeah, it's really, really wonderful to be here. Very touching.
So if you're out there and you're wearing one of these amazing costumes, make some noise. Can we get some house lights on the audience? Whoop, whoop, whoop. A lot of creativity in the audience. And you know, when you're walking around the park, what's cool
Is that male bow batons? Yeah! Equality! Trey BM.
So, you know, when you walk around, not just the focused events that we have here or any of the sound stages or the, you know, the amphitheaters, but you get to see these guys. They're walking all around the park. They're enjoying what Universal Orlando has to offer, but they're also like, they're doing their own things. It's like they're their own paparazzi as they meet each other, because you mentioned community, you know, being here together under the love of Harry Potter. They all are very creative out there, and they do their own thing. And, you know, that kind of brings us to our first question. They all have their own spells. They make them up. They produce them. What would your go-to spell be, whether it's one that you've already known of through the movies or one that you could create? If you each had an ability to create a spell, what would that spell be?
Put us on the spot a little.
Mine is Wingardium Leviosa. Okay,
That is true.
There's a very good reason for it as well. For me, Warwick Davis, it'd be very useful to just levitate just a couple of feet off the ground. Okay? Then I could reach cash machines, you know, buffets in restaurants and that sort of thing. That'd be very useful. So, yeah, mine is Wingardium Leviosa.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Swish and a flip.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Very good. Anyway,
I'm an Expelliarmus fan. Expelliarmus! As far as inventing one, I'm not nearly creative enough on the spot to think of such a thing. But I know a man who is. Jason.
Thanks so much. Well,
that's what we call a volley.
The extraordinary thing about Potter, the fact that the reason everybody loves the stories and the characters and the world that Joe created, both in the books and the films, is because they're about inclusion, and they're about nobody feeling alone, and about never judging people's insides by their outsides, and so I would invent some spell like prejudice and backside them, which would take prejudice and shove it where it belongs.
Okay.
What did I tell you, Warren? Did you disappoint?
Out of the park. Matthew?
Oh yeah, okay, I'll just follow Jason, shall I?
Sure.
Mine's already a spell that exists. Alohomora is mine. Because the last time I was here for COHP, I went back to England and I'd left my house keys here at Universal, and I couldn't get into my house. I had to go to the next door neighbour, and she had a spare because she does like garden. It's weird facts for you there. And I had to go ask if she could let me in my own house. Alohomora would have come in very handy.
All right. Very
Classic Lewis.
Nice. So as far as all these fantastic films are concerned, do you have a favorite scene that kind of stands out, either that you were in or one that you wish you could have been in?
I love the one of Lockhart when he gets hit with the spell that I can't remember the name of, but he wakes up and it's, thank you, Obliviate? Thank God someone paid attention, yeah. And he wakes up completely baffled by the world around him. He's like, who are you? You know, and it's a charming little rendition from Kenneth. I thoroughly enjoy that.
Very nice, very nice. Anyone else on that one?
What was the question again? I went off on one. I was just trying to remember that scene.
No. A favorite scene that you had in the movies, either that involved you or that you just enjoyed watching.
Well, my favourite scenes that I'm in all of them, obviously.
Okay.
Why would I ever want anybody else's scenes better? My favourite scene was the first scene I did. The first scene, because it's the first time I was ever in that world. And it was with the late, great Richard Harris, who was an amazing... All props to the fabulous Michael Gambon, but Richard Harris was my Dumbledore, like everyone's got their James Bond. And so I was terrified of him, and for those of you who are too young to remember, Richard Harris was a huge star throughout the 60s and 70s, and Oscars and acclaim galore, and he was this famed rabble-rouser and took no prisoners. And so I arrived on the set, and I went to drama school with his son, so I thought immediately I've got to get in with Richard because I'm scared of him. And I said, oh, I'm a friend of Jared's, I was at drama school with him. He was the best actor. Well, apart from you, he's unbelievable. And he immediately softened and he started to tell me stories and took me under his wing and told me some very, very unrepeatable R-rated stories. And so I thought, oh, he's my mate now. Richard is my mate, and I don't need to worry about doing a scene with him. And then they said, let's go up and do the first take. So I get up, and the first bit we were shooting was the end of the scene in Dumbledore's office on my first day. So and Richard had the first line, which was something simple like, thank you, Lucius, that'll be all, something like that, right? So I stand opposite Richard and I go, I'm thinking, he's got amazing recall. And this guy was drinking for like 30 years from morning till night, and he remembered every one of the most sordid details of the 1960s and 70s. So I sit opposite him and they go, and rolling, and, to say 5, take 7, no, take 1, action. I look at Richard, and he just looks at me. And I look at Richard, he looks at me, and I think, poor guy's forgotten his lines. He's not in his first flush of youth, he's not been well, he's 70-something years old. And he looks at me, and I think, oh no. And he looks at me, and I think, maybe it's my line. It's my first day, how embarrassing. And I look at him and I think, God, is it my line? I can't look sideways because the cameras are on me and him, And then I look at him and I think, no, it must be his line. I go, no, it's definitely my line because he's narrowing his eyes, and I start to sweat. I start to sweat, not just from my forehead, but from all places in my body where sweat should not be emerging. And just when I'm thinking it's time to go and ask for some new underwear, Richie goes, thank you, Lucius, that'll be all. And I think, you old bastard. And I just remember how brilliant and electric it was, and thinking, it might be wizards and witches, but I better take this seriously.
Very nice. That's a great story. Matthew?
Oh, wow. Why do I always have to go after him?
You can take your shirt off.
You don't want to see that. That was a year ago. You don't want to see it now, trust me.
Do we want to see it now?
There goes that bus you just got thrown under.
So my favorite scene was in in the final film, in the last one, okay, when I think I'm kind of sort of in it in the background a little bit, when they all put their wands up and they put the shield around Hogwarts. I just remember David's directing in that scene. The music comes in, and you just know that it's about to go down. Something's about to happen, and I remember just getting a real shiver down my spine, and it just set a roller coaster in motion for the last sort of act of that movie. But that moment was chilling. I'll never forget that.
Very cool. Very cool.
What? I think for me it was the filming of the concert sequence in the Great Hall, and with Jarvis Cocker and Radiohead, and it was literally like a rock concert. We spent many days filming it, although much of that was cut from the finished film. but they had quite a few numbers, and there were speakers under the stage, and I had to introduce them, and I stood on the side of the stage and watched them and played air guitar, and none of that was in the movie, but it was a really fun experience. So one of my favourite times. Actually, all of my favourite moments, I think, were in the Great Hall, and it's an incredible set, because normally when you make a film, a set is put up and you shoot on it and then it's destroyed. But the Great Hall stood there, and still stands to this day, for the entire duration of the filming, and it became like a historical building rather than a set, because so many things happened in that room. Great feasts happened, funerals happened in the room, concerts, the Yule Ball happened there, and then of course in the last film it was partially destroyed and was a very sad place to be in. It's very poignant, and when I go back to the Great Hall even today at the studio tour, you know, it brings back all of those memories of the things that happened in that room, and unlike any other set I've ever been on in my career.
Can I remind the audience of that wonderful shot, if you remember, as one of Flitwick being crowd surfing right just after that. Yeah, now I think about it, there's quite a crowd.
No way.
Who wants to see Warwick Davis crowd surf, ladies and gentlemen? There's no.
I'll do it if Matt takes his shirt off.
All right, we're getting close.
I'm fine with that, Tom. I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, let's see what you think.
Well, speaking of crowd surfing and whatnot, were there any stunts in the film that you got to participate in, or maybe watch and you're like, man, I wish I could be part of that, or anything that stands out?
Well, there were a lot of things I didn't want to do that I had to do, like that. Crowd surfing, and like being dropped down from the roof of the studio when we jump off of the Gringotts cart, and we were on cables and we had to be lowered down to the floor very quickly, like we were falling. And it was stopped by the cushioning spell that Hermione casts. And I remember looking over, and there was this stunt guy like on a rope, but he just had like a cigarette in his mouth, and he was really old. And I'm thinking, are you paying attention? Because you have my life in your hands, literally. If you don't stop that rope at the right moment, I'm going to have a very squashed prosthetic face. And fortunately he did, but it was quite scary. So there's a lot of things I didn't want to do that I had to do, but yeah, I'm not keen to. I'm sure these younger members of the cast, you always want to do your own stunts, didn't you?
I'm just picturing like Radcliffe and Emma all loving this scene, loving this opportunity to do it, and you just terrified.
It was horrendous.
It shouldn't be so funny, but
Thank you, Tom.
yeah, I revelled in it. It was great. In the second film, there was a wand duel on this huge long table in the Grey Hall. Yeah. And Radcliffe and I went back and forth with a few spells, and they roped us up with wires and whatnot, and sort of strung it around us, so when they lifted us, you would sort of spin in various forms. And there was like crowds of people watching you. I felt very James Bond in that moment, yeah. I enjoyed that.
How much training for you went into that when you did that?
Years.
Years.
No, nothing. Are you kidding me? I was 12 years old. I was just stood there. They strapped a wire to me.
Was there like a moment where you're like, okay, this is pretty terrifying, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, let's do more?
Not really. I mean, the 12-year-old self just thought it was very cool to have a wire, I suppose, attached to your back, and then they just lifted you up. Yeah, no, I was really into it. I was pretty into it from the get-go.
Very cool.
There's something about, you know, when we were that age, just being completely fearless in terms of stunts. And so it was very difficult for the stunt guys to tell us, you cannot do that, you're going to die. And they'd have to take over. A lot of the jerk-back stuff, like that you were doing now, I remember watching you guys doing that and being so jealous of the duel. I was just stood there watching it. And then whenever it did come to like doing one stuff, there would always be a stuntman would come in and take over. I look back now and I go, thank God for that, because that would have been ridiculous. But when I was a kid, I wanted to do everything. I was so jealous of the entire stunt team for doing everything.
The direct opposite of Warwick, I think.
Me too. Because between film 2 and film 4, when I came back, I went to shoot Peter Pan in Australia. There was a lot of flying in Peter Pan, and I spent months and months and months in the air. And when you're in the air, which is spectacular on film, what you're really wearing is a giant metal pair of underpants and getting the biggest, longest wedgie that anyone's ever had. So, you know, big tattooed men pulling you up on wires and swinging you around, and if you're not being nice, leaving you up there at lunchtime, you know. And I'd had a couple of unfortunates because you have to rearrange yourself very carefully so that when you pulled up, the weight is spread evenly and not on the wrong parts of your body. As happened one day in Peter Pan, and I was up there, I went, put me down! And the director went, mate, I've got to get this shot. And I went, you do not have to get this shot! Not today, not now! And he said, just let me shoot. And it's when Captain Hook gets stuck in the ring. I said, it's killing me! And he said, it looks good, you look in pain. I went, I'm in pain! So when I came back, and there were moments when Lucius was blasted off my feet like in Malfoy Manor, and I watching these, while everybody else going, I'll do it, I was going, who's doubling for me in this moment? There was one in Malfoy Manor at that moment when Dobby drops the chandelier, though. My kids came to visit. My kids very rarely came to visit the set. They weren't interested in the set. They only liked the free chocolate and the fact that in the trailer, my toilet flushed with your feet. That was the main thing. They would come and shove rolls of toilet paper down and flush it with their feet.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. So they're on the set, though, for that rare moment, and the chandelier drops, and without telling her, I thought, I know what I'll do, Lucius. I'll dive into the fireplace. But normally you say those things, they spend weeks making a rubber fireplace. And I just dove very enthusiastically into the steel fireplace with the great and got up and tried not to cry in front of my children.
Great answers. You guys having a good time out there? Yes. Let's continue on. So, Tom and Matthew, you guys grew up, basically, during the shooting of the films. Continuing on with your careers, what would you say is the biggest thing that you've taken away? And I'll definitely relate this to you, Warwick, and Jason as well. But what do you?
We don't mind. We can sit here and listen to them. It's okay.
What is the biggest thing that you've taken away that's helped you move through your career?
Well, I'd say we got older, but we definitely didn't grow up. If anything, we got more ridiculous as the years went on. Look at us now. So much to take away from it, really. Yeah. Learning from the country's best as far as how to be professional and how.
Pleasure.
What? Sorry, I wasn't actually referring to. Actually, that was straight under the radar, didn't it? Okay, moving on. Yeah, learning from them, and as far as really what we've taken away from it, I don't know really. It's something that it gets more and more appreciated the further and further you go away from it. The more work you do on other sets, the more you get to work with other people. You realise quite the quality and the level of the experience that we had there.
Yeah, I mean, I echo that entirely. It's very difficult to look back on the whole experience and pick out specific things that you learned from it, because we started so young, and it was our childhood. It's like saying, what did you learn in school that you take with you now? It's the whole experience as an entity that we've taken forth, and I didn't appreciate it at the time. But as Tom says, you walk onto a film set now or a TV set or whatever, and you just feel comfortable. You feel at home there. And that's through growing up on it, and it's that kind of thing, that experience that I didn't appreciate that I even had.
Right.
And that I take away from working on these movies.
So I was going to say that because it was your first experience of films, but Warwick and I have been on a ton of them, and for everyone out there, wherever you go to work, the atmosphere at work is generally set by whoever's sitting on the top of the pyramid. Where the bosses, wherever they treat the people beneath them, that's how they treat people, and that's a culture. And there was a culture of kindness and warmth on the set. Everybody was incredibly nice to each other all the time. And the kids, as they were then, and adults now, but all the way through, everybody was always humble. Nobody behaved arrogantly. Nobody behaved like they were better than anyone else. And that, I think, infused for 10 years the atmosphere of 3,000 people who worked there. And I'm sure that's what you've taken, that's why you've turned out to be just lovely young men. And everyone else has turned out, and you look at the work they're doing, not just on camera, but the charity things people do on camera, they turn out to be really fine individuals. Because it was set from the producers and the director, mostly the original producers, they went, this is going to be a place people want to come to work, where nobody is rude to anybody else. And that, I think, is something you carry into your work now, right?
Absolutely, and for the adults, but as well as Dear Radcliffe, I cannot think of a better person to have him at the top of our tree as number one on the call sheet. He never wavered with enthusiasm, dedication, joy to be there, and passion, and that just leaked throughout the entire thing. Imagine in the fourth film if he was bored of it and he'd had enough. The rest of us would probably have echoed that, but instead...
But he was humble. I mean, Dan never behaved like he was the star of the films at all.
No.
He was very generous.
I don't think even now he would recognise that. He's a man of the people, a man of the crew. Yeah, a lot to... I respect him massively, and I learned just as much from him, I think, as I did the oldies.
Yeah, I mean, something that...
hold on.
He didn't gesture this way, he gestured that way over there. I mean, something that illustrates what Tom was just saying about Dan was, one day I was we were doing the courtyard scene in Deathly Hallows Part 2, and for that moment he was unconscious, supposedly dead in Hagrid's arms, so he wasn't in it. And I remember saying, I said to him, "What are you doing out here?" And he said, "I'm just helping out." And he was like holding umbrellas for Maggie Smith and things, and he was kind of just, he was somebody who motivated us through the times when we would have all wanted to give up, but
Absolutely.
he was there just kind of, come on, let's keep going, and it was fantastic. And just to answer, is there something I learned from the films? Because I did learn something. Don't crowd surf, that's what I learned.
Okay.
I think they can
that's
change
a
that
point over the
tonight.
weekend that'll be driven home to those who may be considering doing such
Yeah, don't do
things.
it.
All right, so did you ever receive any information from JK Rowling, ever telling you anything about your character before it was in the books? Did you get any clues or inspirations before going into the films or the shooting of the films?
She said that I would be Neville's love interest by the sixth film, but
It never happened.
it never. She was having me on. No, she.
Careful what you say. I answered this question earlier, right?
Hold on. Jason's over there
Yeah.
going, I just said good things about you. And now,
Just careful what you say, because I said something earlier, and people have been tweeting it and tagging JK Rowling in, and also not putting that it was a joke either. You've got to put the smiley face after. I mean, Joe's going to be like,
That's a fair point. I retract my statement.
Too late now, mate.
I desperately wanted to know, because when I was, a lot of the adult actors occasionally considered not coming back to do the next film, because there were quite big commitments a long way in advance, and they were only, we'd like you for February and 3 days in June and all of October. So sometimes it was difficult professionally to go, do I want to do that? And we all ended up, thank God, staying throughout the films. But there was a moment when I thought, well, I'm not really in number 5 very much, and number 6 is coming out, and if I'm not in number 6, I could maybe do another job now, do something, and just say thanks very much, but I've had my time as well. And I was shooting something in Rhode Island, and I was asked to go at midnight to the Barnes & Noble there and sign the books when they came out. So I was filming and I was wrapped at 11, and I said, oh, okay, and I went down there. The entire shopping mall was full, like 10,000 people there just to go to the bookshop and get the book at midnight. And I went, oh my God, I quite realised what level of commitment this was. And I go in, there's piles and piles of photographs for me to sign, and I said to, I signed it until my hand was sore, and I said to the bookshop manager, I said, is there any chance I can have a look in book 6 and just see if I'm in it? So I've got to make a big work decision. He said, I can't, if I open it, there'll be a riot. And I said, I'm sitting here signing a million pictures for you. He said, I'll tell you what, I'll send one of my kids back there and open the book for you. What do you want to look for? I said, just tell him to fold over every page that I'm on. That's all. Just tell the photo, when he sees Lucius Malfoy, fold the page on, right? So I'm out there signing and smiling and signing and smiling and photographs and selfies, signing, and the kid comes to the door, big spotty lanky kid with a hat, and he goes, and I went, what? And he went, and I said, my dad? And he goes, and I thought, oh, that's okay. I said, it's okay. And he goes, 0. Right? And then I had to sign another 5,000 pictures. So no, Joe didn't tell me that. But then I turned out to be in book 7, so I signed up, which is a good thing.
that is a good thing.
Joe came up to me at one of the premieres and told me that she'd just finished Deathly Hallows and she'd locked it away under in a safe somewhere at her house. But she'd just written this wonderful stuff for Neville, and I specifically told her not to tell me anything. I think I was quite rude. I think I was actually like, no, shut your mouth, Joe. And I put my fingers in my ears, and she was like, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot, I won't say anything, because she knew I was such a huge fan of the books, and so I waited until it came out. So no, Joe was really careful with me, and really adamant that she wasn't going to leak any information to me.
All right. Warwick, what was it that... no, we don't have to.
No, I'm not going to answer this one again. No, Joe didn't tell me anything about my character.
She didn't.
No, she didn't.
So you just got all your direction from the directors themselves as far as what...
Everything from the books and the directors of the script.
All right. Straightforward.
Absolutely.
Right here. Boom. All right.
Tweet that.
So we've got some, as you can see. Let's do the house lights one more time. Look at these amazing fans that we have out here. Do we have any Slytherins in the house? Yes.
Are there any children in the audience? So, do you know what? It's all part of it. What's amazing is that I know it sounds strange, and we're up here, and some of you, hold us in high regard because we're in the films. But the honest truth is we were all huge fans of the world. We all felt honoured to be any part of this very precious thing that no one can really understand why her stories resonate with people, not just here in America or in Britain, but all over the world. In every culture you can imagine, people feel like it's written about them. And every encounter with a fan, it never feels like they're going, as actors, we've been in other stuff, and people come up and say, oh, I like doing this thing, or I like this show. When it comes to Harry Potter, I always feel like no one's ever talking to me, or talking about Lucius. They're talking about how important it was to them. And the extreme end is people come up and they go, and I had it today, and I'm sure we all did, people go, Harry Potter stories saved my life. There were times I felt so alone, or so depressed, or I had such difficulty. I knew through one of the characters or through one of the dilemmas or something to do with the indescribable magic of it, I felt less alone and I was able to get through dark times. So that, separating single stories of, when you sign someone, I remember someone coming up and saying, can you sign my body, I'm going to get tattooed. And I go, I don't really think you should have a tattoo on my signature. And they go, look, I got everyone else. Stuff like that is less important than generally that for years and years, and hopefully for years to come, these stories do way more than entertain. They entertain, but they touch people and they make them feel less alone. So it's all one big fan experience for me, and we are as big fans of them as you guys are.
Very nice. Matthew, fan experience, a memorable one?
Oh wow, so many. I think actually there was one time. I think I mentioned it yesterday. Actually, in one of the panels that I met a girl in Canada, and she had my signature tattooed on her arm, which was kind of a weird thing for me. The idea of tattooing your body with something that I'd written was a weird thing anyway. But then she explained the meaning behind it, and it was the fact that she tried to kill herself before. And the character of Neville had got her past that, and his battle against adversity and the way he evolved and became this hero against all the odds is what she used in her own personal life. And I agree with Jason. It's the story that Jo has created. It's the characters that she's given such depth to and such reality to. They're real people that we can all relate to at some point in our lives, and some experience that we go through. There's someone in Harry Potter that we can use as a guide, and this one circumstance happened to be the character I played. But it was just so amazing, because you often forget the impact that you have on people. We just turn up to work and we do our job. But the strength of the material and the world means that it's so much more than that, and I will never forget that as long as I live. I don't.
Great story. Thank you. Warwick?
Well, I mean, it's very hard to pick an individual experience from a fan, but I mean, I think the fans of Harry Potter are amongst the most passionate, most dedicated fans in fandom, basically. I mean, you're all wonderful people, and we certainly appreciate it. And to kind of go back to what Jason said earlier about the stories that JK Rowling writes, and how empowered many of you feel from reading them, and that's a theme that resonates throughout, is the kind of the idea that if you read the stories, you feel empowered, you feel like you can do anything. And I was actually working on a documentary about Fantastic Beasts and JK Rowling's Wizarding World, and trying to find out what the secret to the success of her writing is, and it is about that, the fact that it does touch people in a way and empowers them and gives them a self-belief that they didn't perhaps have before, and I think that's terrific. But certainly for me, it's lovely to be on the receiving end of so much warmth from the fans, and I sincerely thank you for that.
Very nice. Tom?
Many weird and wonderful experiences. There's like 25 Japanese girls at the airport all dressed as Malfoy, which was...
Now that was a weird dream you had.
It felt like it when I arrived at the airport, I tell you. But to continue on what the boys were saying, it's remarkable. The greatest gift that I think we've been given, and maybe more so to the kids, is that we physically embody something that is very precious to a lot of people, because we represent the characters that mean so much, that have empowered the readers. So with such a little gesture as just saying hello, I just remember going to countless hospital wards, children's hospital wards, and being able to bring something to these people's lives within 10 seconds, just saying hello. That's all we have to do. And
They run screaming.
Kids used to be terrified of me, to be fair. Yeah, and that's it's bizarre and ultimately doesn't really reflect our experience because we've just sort of turned up and done our best. But to be able to have that effect on people and to drive positivity in that direction, I just feel so lucky to be part of it.
Very nice. Thank you so much. So, as we know, that series has come to a close. What are you working on now, currently? What projects or things are you doing with yourselves now? Warwick?
Well, it's tricky in our industry. I often feel like I work for some secret government organisation where I'm not allowed to speak of anything I do, and that is the case at the moment. I can't really say. I can't talk about what.
Star Wars.
I can't talk about.
I'm guessing, sir.
Don't answer specifically, but is it in a galaxy far away?
I can't talk about anything I'm doing. I can't say anything. I can neither confirm nor deny such things. But yeah, we just appreciate. I mean, I certainly do. I'm sure Jason does. We appreciate working. Full stop. It's lovely to be asked. And you know what? I never take each project for granted. You work on something and you enjoy it to the maximum, you get the maximum out of it, and then never think that there's something else. Just appreciate that moment. It's true of life, actually. Anything you do, enjoy that moment. And I do when I work. I kind of love what I'm doing and never assume anyone is ever going to want to employ me after that. And when they do, it's a surprise, it's a delight, and then you move on. But yes, I don't take it for granted, but there you go.
Very nice. And what is it you're working on?
I'm not going to say. I'll tell you.
What was that project you were telling me about back there? Wasn't it the same one?
Matthew,
Okay.
what have you got going on these days?
I did a play in London at the back end of last year, which was.
Is that for London or the play or Matt? What's what? Okay.
It was pretty intense. So I decided to, because I'm just a pathetic actor, to take all of Christmas off. And now, after this weekend, I suppose I should get back to work, shouldn't I? Yeah. I got the last series. Do you remember I had a moustache last year? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That was for something. That's coming out later on this year in America. Final series of that will be out. No, I'm just sitting here talking to you guys at the minute.
Yeah. Being in the present.
Yeah, being in the present.
There you go.
That's it.
All right. So, Jason, you've been real busy.
Yeah, I just want to apologise because I've got lots of things coming out and you're going to get really sick of me, that's all. I'm in a series called The OA.
Come on.
Is that because you've seen it? Hands up who's seen it. Good, 8 of you, that's good. And there's a series on Netflix called The OA. Do not let your children watch that. There's a thriller horror film coming out next week called Cure for Wellness. That is coming out. These are people who've downloaded illegal copies of that. And there's a couple of others. There's a film called Hotel Mumbai and Death of Stalin and Behind the Glass, and they're all coming out. And I just heartily apologise for you watching me on brightly coloured sofas, telling you to buy tickets. Buy tickets to whatever you feel like it. Don't worry about it.
All right. And you're kind of staying busy these days.
Yes.
Tom?
I'm currently working on a show best symbolised by a lightning bolt. Which is quite ironic. Yes, I'm knee deep in Star Labs. I'm working on The Flash, season 3. So I'll be doing that for the next 4 months or so. So yeah,
Very
thank
nice.
you. I've noticed there has been a crossover between the Potter fans and the Flash fanatics, so I'm very appreciative of that. Thank you.
Very nice. And here's our final question for you guys. And it just kind of brings things back to, just having some fun and thinking about what you might be doing or what you consider doing if you were not an actor.
Professional crowd surfer.
You guys would give him a job, right?
Let's see it work.
Prove it.
I would love to see Warwick Crowd surf right now. It's not gonna happen, is it? All right, let go.
All right. So if you weren't an actor, Matthew, what else what do you think you'd do?
I love you. Will you?
If he wasn't working, would you support him? That's the question. There you go.
What? Are you telling me? Oh, no! No, dreadful.
No underwear. He doesn't wear it.
Jason, that was in confidence. No, I would love to have been a rugby league player, which would mean nothing to the vast majority of the people like this entire audience, yeah. But it's a sport that involves 13 men beating the hell out of 13 other men on a pitch. And I'm not hard enough for that. I'm not tough enough. I'm not anywhere near the ability that they could have. But in my dream, that would have been what I'd wanted to do. You know?
All right, Jason.
Well, I'm very geeky. I was always geeky before the web came along. I was on bulletin boards and Newsnet and stuff like that. And I think I would have a blue Apple T-shirt on and be saying, "How can I help you?" At the Genius Bar. I like to think I'd be at the Genius Bar. I might be at the mildly intelligent bar. I don't know.
You'd be bloody good at that.
Oh, thanks very much.
I can see that.
Tom?
It's hard to imagine. I'd be underwear modelling with Matt, most likely. Oh, I don't have anything better to say. Maybe a musician. Yeah, I'd love to be a musician, but it's something that's very dear to me, so maybe I don't know. All I know is I'm extraordinarily lucky to be doing this and not anything else. So, yeah, if it wasn't in TV, if it wasn't not behind the scenes, I'm a very keen photographer, so maybe photograph. I don't think I'm made for the world of office life. So, I know as a kid I said I wanted to be a professional fisherman. I retracted that statement pretty soon after. But yeah, I think something in music would be cool. If not behind the scenes on...
Would you buy an album? Because he's very good. Would you buy an album if you're going? Just saying. I did tell you.
Yeah, he's very good. Last night, my hotel room's quite near his. I heard him twanging away at about 11 o'clock last night.
Excuse me?
Guitar, right?
Yeah.
Well,
I told you that in confidence.
And on that bombshell.
yes, there we go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Tom said that he was lucky enough to be doing what he does now, and I think you guys would agree that we are lucky enough to have these guys be excellent at their craft, to be able to spend some time with us. And with that, we are out of time, so if you would join me in giving these gentlemen a big round of applause.
Orlando, thank you. Beautiful witches and wizards.
Jason Isaacs, Matthew Lewis, and of course, Warwick Davis. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much to these four gentlemen. And on that night, we've got one more fantastic day here at Universal Orlando Resort, so enjoy the rest of the weekend at a celebration of Harry Potter 2017.